Two, one. I'm here with Andrew Mullen from Melbourne, from Pacing the Cage. How are you going, Andrew?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Really appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you today.
Yeah, it's great to be talking to you. I really respect talking to people like you who take all their personal opinions and life and just put it straight up front for everyone to hear in their art.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because we put a lot of effort into what we've been doing, and we quite enjoy having that opportunity to share the music and chat to folks like you who are doing a great job supporting Aussie music.
Well, thank you for that. I know with this recent project of yours, your album Intox, you tackle a lot of big issues there. You tackle mental illness, political corruption, social equality, and Australia's place in the refugee crisis. I was wondering what made you want to tackle so many broad concepts at once, and why now?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question because the album it's essentially quite a personal album. It just so happened that a lot of the opinions and experiences that I personally was going through at the time of writing the album, and things like you mentioned political corruption. That we've got. I was quite passionate about how on earth they could lose a massive aeroplane in the sea with the Malaysian Airlines, and it kind of, to me, it was like something's not right. There's got to be something else going on here, because they can using satellites pretty much see everything that we do in our communities, and so it's just one of those things that I was quite passionate about. And other songs you mentioned, mental illness and social equality, and it all basically started off as personal songs, and it just so happened that they were quite topical as well. And certainly those ones that deal with emotional kind of emotional topics that people connect to, where people connect to songs differently, and it was just good to be able to have that outlet to be able to share my experiences, and that can be translated for others as well. Right.
Do you feel like obligated as an artist to talk about these broader issues?
Not obligated. I think when there's those topics that you can be quite passionate about, and the treatment of refugees in Australia and certainly across the world even, they're kind of topics that, as a musician, I'm not the kind of person who has the skills to, go and do, big speeches on the treatment of people. But a musician, the way that I can express these things is through music. So that's kind of, it's not quite an obligation, but I think certainly there's certainly a responsibility as a musician to make sure that it is you do present yourselves in quite a positive way for the communities.
That's really interesting to consider. Do you think that your own personal philosophies and opinions have been shaped by the kind of art and music that you've been exposed to?
Certainly. The name "Pacing the Cage" is actually came from a Bruce Cockburn song, and I don't know if you're familiar with Bruce Cockburn, but he is a Canadian artist, and I grew up listening to him through my father, and it was kind of I've got to tell you, picking a band name is the most soul-destroying exercise in the world, because because it seems that every band name's been taken, and you just want something that's going to fit. And although I didn't particularly want to name it specifically after a song, but the words of Pace in the Cage was really fit how we felt, and certainly it was a name that I just kept coming back to as the strongest way to do that. And certainly that example there with Bruce Cockburn and other kind of artists that I grew up listening to, Rage Against the Machine and
I had a feeling you were going to say Rage Against the Machine.
yeah, they're quite I guess my emotional impact to their music was as such that I guess you do become influenced by these kind of artists.
And being in Melbourne, like, it must be such a good atmosphere because it's considered, the artistic centre of Australia. It must be a great place to just go out and express yourself.
Yeah, Melbourne is sensational. There's, a lot of venues, and there's also a lot of good bands, and it's so that's kind of it's an amazing place for live music, for arts and culture, but it's also a very competitive place as well, because there are a lot of good bands, and we did a show recently with a Melbourne band called Pretty City, and they'd just done some stuff in Europe, and they said, look, you're back in Australia when even all the support bands are, they should be doing the headlining, because the quality of music's so tops.
Yeah, that's cool. I know also you recently did a awareness show for mental health, which I think is great because that's a very important thing for me. In your opinion, to what extent can music affect one's mental state?
In my opinion, I think there's an emotional connection that people have when listening to music. It's I studied actually music in the brain, and there's certain reasons why certain people like pop music, or like say progressive rock or something like that. But based on their own personalities and all those kind of attributes that we have, and I do feel that certainly I'll use the Rage Against the Machine example again. You can listen to them and feel quite fired up and ready to take on the world, and then of course you could be listening to something a little less intense, and maybe just to wind down, or maybe it is just a nice love song that you can relate to yourself.
Yeah, it's a strange phenomenon that humans have just decided to come up with and play around with over the years, I guess. Are you able to enjoy music and art that you don't necessarily agree with? Is it more difficult?
It's not difficult. I think the elements of good musicianship is one thing. You can certainly enjoy a band, but not agree with their underlying message. I quite like the band Ghost, and I think their messages are probably a little bit different to what I would go for, but I can still enjoy the music and know that there's it's not hitting me at that emotional level, but it's certainly still enjoyable.
Well, that being said, what would you like to explore next with your music? Do you want to stay personal, or now that you've reached out into these larger areas, you're going to keep fighting with that? Where are you going?
I think for me personally, and the album Intox that we did, that was our debut album, and it certainly was a personal record for me. And since then, the band's kind of grown into a rock band. We're out on the road and doing shows. And as you mentioned earlier, we did the mental health awareness night in Albury. That was on Saturday, actually. And that was really enjoyable because it was an opportunity to get in the face of a lot of people that may or may not have suffer from mental illness or anything like that. But it was kind of a good chance for me to say, you know what, it's not just about awareness. It's actually, coming to a show, that's kind of cool. I'm glad everyone's there, but you know what, tomorrow you gotta keep at it. It's it's not just the awareness; it's actually taking some action on these things. So I think for the future, I do feel that there'll be more songs that are probably very opinionated and close to my heart, but at the same time, probably relatable in the broad kind of spectrum.
I think that's great. I think it's really cool that you've armed yourself with your own weapon and you're crafting it yourself and you're prepared to use it. So that's big round of applause for you, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I think just also on that, we were talking about mental health and the kind of awareness and things like that, and we were a little bit, as a band, we were a little bit unsure on doing that in a venue that was serving alcohol, and where alcohol can be quite a depressant. And I think in the end we thought, you know what, we've probably got a better chance of reaching those people that might struggle with alcohol or might use it for their social kind of confidence, and probably that's the place to find them and do the show, even though we didn't think that it was appropriate to be at that kind of venue.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're just going to make those hard decisions. I don't necessarily think that performing in a venue to certain people like that could be considered a bad decision. It's good that you consider that,
Right.
but no, you definitely made the right call, and you've got to just speak where you can at this point.
Yeah, and we really, and like I said, we really enjoyed the show and had the opportunity to talk to some people afterwards and just kind of, share a few experiences, and that was, made it all worthwhile. So it didn't matter if it was in a pub with 7 people or a pub that, 200-300 I think they had there, and we just did a whole heap of shows in Japan that were sometimes quite empty, but we still enjoy every show.
Well, the word always spreads, especially with music, and I'm going to be playing some of your tracks now on air so that people can even more so in Sydney feel connected to you and get to know Pacing the Cage a bit better. And I'm really appreciative that you took the time out to talk to me, and this was great.
Yeah. Thanks so much, and I know I ramble on a bit, so
No.
thanks for being patient with me.
No, of course not. You've got a lot to say, but that's not that's not a bad thing.
That's right. But look, I really appreciate that you're going to play a few tunes on your show. We're releasing a single in the new year called "Scream for Tokyo," and it's we're kind of, that's probably out of all our songs the least politically motivated or anything like that. It's people are enjoying that song for what it is, a bit of a upbeat ode to Tokyo. So any opportunity we get with radio stations, we just really appreciate it, and so thank you so very much.
No, that's fine. Look, I'm excited. Send me through anything new you've got. I'll play it when you're down in Sydney. Feel free to come on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
The connection won't bug out.